You have a quorum and it is 7:01. So if Michelle wants to call the meeting to order, we can do that.
Okay, I will call the meeting to order. So
Great.
then, do we have somebody who would like to move to approve the minutes from last week?
Yeah, I will
Discussion.
move approval.
Katie moves to approve. Is there a second?
I second it.
Maria seconds. Thanks, Maria.
And
All
is that
right.
both sets of minutes, including the one that I just emailed to you at 6:15? Okay.
Yep. Okay, so shall we move on to our first agenda item? Summer fun.
Do we have to vote on the?
Oh, do we have to vote on the minutes?
Yes, we have a motion and a second.
See, I don't know what I'm doing here.
It's okay. It's okay. Just ask for all in favor and opposed.
All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Now we'll move on. Okay, so item agenda number 1, summer fun, brought to you by the CDA and Arts Committee. So we've been doing this for the month of July. We've been discussing whether or not to do it for the month of August. We've had a serious problem getting volunteers. And so Meg and I have talked about this, and our feeling is that maybe we should not go into August. We have had a great response from the community. The community and the kids love it. We have had structured projects every week, and then we just kind of throw all the art supplies out there and let them go to town, and it's kind of just an art free for all. And they've made some really creative and fun things. But last week, Emily was our volunteer and she left at 7. I had to set up and tear down. I was the only one there when she left. And the week before, both of my volunteers were not there. And so, it's Meg and I have been kind of spearheading this, and one of us has been there each week. And so in light of that, I guess we should discuss whether or not we want to do August or not. And we have come in under budget as well, I would say that, on our supplies. So that might be the other thing I would add to that.
Yeah, I think we spent about, I haven't added it up in a while, but I think the last time I added it was like $287. And we had budgeted for 500. So, and I think there's quite a bit of supplies left, but I haven't been there the last 2 weeks because I was on vacation. Is there a lot of supplies left, Michelle?
There are of some things. I had to restock googly eyes and something else, paper plates last week. So there are a few things that we've had to restock, but yes, we still have, quite a few items. This week we'll need more glue and more googly eyes. The googly eyes are very popular.
Okay.
Erin
For all
Summers
projects.
did send me an email and she said she would be able to volunteer for Thursday nights in August to continue the arts and crafts on the green.
Who said that?
Erin Summers.
That's good, but are we going to, is she going to run into the same thing that we've run into? We can't just have one person, it's too much. I guess, again, unless we can, if we can tap into some volunteers, then great. But I don't know that that's going to happen. And it makes me also very concerned about Good Neighbor Fest and needing to have volunteers there throughout the entire day. So what else do you guys think?
I'm new to the committee. Could you let me know what we're doing for Good Neighbor Fest or what the plan is?
We're doing a group canvas that will have a drawing on it. And we'll be talking about it later in the meeting as well, but Essentially, it'll have like the outline of a festival and a wash over the background. And people will be able to come up and kind of interpret the festival scene themselves. And we've been talking about different media, and I think we've settled on Sharpies. Is that correct? Or paint pens, Meg? What did we end up on?
I don't know if we decided. Those were two options. The paint pens are a lot more expensive. So I think it is going to come down to what we have the artist do, which we'll have to talk about with the marketing communication update, I think.
Right.
The
But that's the
Sharpies are very
idea.
affordable. So that's pretty much all I have.
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea, is just kind of a group piece, and then it'll be hung some in one of the public spaces in town.
We could probably pull up that website or have Abby pull it up during the meeting, just so people can see the artist. But why don't we wait on that until we get
Yes,
to
I agree, and talk about the
summer fun, because I
Summer
think we need to vote on whether, so basically there's two options. Either I extend the sign up genius into August so more people can sign up, other than Michelle and I, because my August is pretty full, or we vote now to not continue in August.
And I would add to that I will be in Michigan for several days in August, and my husband's going to Colorado. I maybe have to join him as well. I haven't decided yet, and so he has a sick relative, and so I'm not going to be able to do Thursday nights every week in August either, or a lot of weeks in August. So those are the choices, I guess. Either we recirculate the volunteer sheet, or we vote not to do it. So who else wants to give input?
I'm Molly, and due to age and allergies, I won't be volunteering. But I certainly support everyone that's doing it.
Well, we understand that you can't volunteer, but I mean, we've had people from outside our committee as well that have volunteered and not shown up, and so it's just it turns into something that should be fun into a really stressful situation.
So Michelle, are the people from CDA who had signed up not showing up? Have they not shown up?
We haven't, I don't think we've had anyone sign up from the CDA that I can think of.
The CDA is doing their own volunteer sheet.
We had some former
for
committee
the
members
music.
that came. Emily, pardon?
Oh, I was just saying that the CDA is doing their own signups for the music, and they've been covering all of those with their own committee members, and to my knowledge, they haven't had any trouble.
And I want to give props to them as well as Abby's intern, because they have all helped me a lot with setup and tear down when nobody else has been there. And so, I want to, say that they have been great about helping out when we've needed it, but we can't rely on that, I think.
Right. Well, it's such a big vacation time. It sounds to me like we should not continue it into August, because it's only going to get tougher.
Well, and I wondered about that too, because a lot of families do go out of town right before school starts.
Mm-hmm. Is this something we're voting on, Abby?
Yeah.
I think we need
to. I think right now we've only voted to approve doing it in July. So in the absence of extending it, I think that it wouldn't continue, but if you would want to take formal action on that, that would be fine.
So are you saying then we only really need to vote on it if we're going to vote to continue?
That's my opinion. Yep.
Okay, well, does anyone want to make a motion to continue? So if not, I guess then we just, we'll kind of let it fade out.
Yeah.
And everyone that I've talked to on the 2 nights that I was there, they said we have the crafts through the end of July, but that they weren't guaranteed. any month after July. And then on the road closure, that was on the same time frame. So the CDA was going to continue to have the music set up there till the end of the summer, but the road closure was only in the month of July. However, at the CDA's last meeting, they did vote to extend the road closure for at least another month. But they've also hired the chalk artist to come every week, and that's a pretty low lift because it doesn't really require any volunteers. And she's going to continue on, as far as I know.
My only thought on it is if Erin Summers, I wish she was here because that would be so much more helpful. If she wants to do it in August, should we just let her run with it? Because I know originally she said that she had all these volunteers that would help, but they never came. So I don't know if
Well,
something
she
didn't work out communication wise. Sorry.
Yeah, I think she felt like she had expressed interest in organizing it, and then that, you know, a couple other people kind of ran with it, and she was like, oh, okay, well, I won't ask my people then, or I'll tell them not to worry about it. But she is, I mean, she has been very interested in helping out with it. So she might be willing to just take it and run with it. I know she's also very busy though. So, but it seemed like from the email she sent me right before the meeting that she would be willing to.
Well, if there's somebody else who has experience with it and knows what they're doing, I am more than willing to help during August. June and July were our busy months. And so August is a lot less busy for us. Basically, baseball and softball ended. And so I'm more available on Thursdays now, so I could help Erin if she needs anyone. I also can ask neighbors and other people to just come with me. A lot of people that I've met, or a lot of our neighbors, didn't even know that these were really going on. And so now that I've mentioned them, and I'm like, yeah, I think they're going on. I didn't realize that they ended in July.
Well,
So
the music and everything will continue through the whole rest of the summer.
and I think with the streets blocked off, I think having an arts and crafts for the kids and with the chalk artist there, I think it's nice to have this as something that families can do, because otherwise the kids are just kind of like bumping around. And so I'm more than happy. I think from what I understood when I volunteered with Meg, it's just a matter of getting the supplies from City Hall or the community center and then returning them, and then, oops, and then I think that's it, right? And restocking if it needs to happen and that kind of stuff. I mean, I think it's
for the most part, you know, setting up the table, and then sometimes kids will need some assistance or some guidance, but yeah, I mean, it's mostly that and cleaning up, you
Right.
know.
Yes,
well, and I don't know who came,
Thank you.
I don't know who
for
came up
helping
with
out.
the cute, like when I was there, we had the rainbows. I don't know if it's the same thing every week or if somebody was coming up with a new idea.
Meg and I
But
had been brainstorming ideas for this, and we would have to come up with some for August if we were going to continue.
yeah, we can also repeat. I mean, if we already have the supplies and everything, we might as well just repeat what we've done, because not everybody's gonna, I mean, the kids that have done it will do it again and you'll get new people. So I think it's a good thing. I think it's a fun thing that we are providing. So I'm more than happy, but I know that, again, I'm new. If you guys have experience and understand that this is something that just needs to fall to the side, I'm not going to push it, but I would definitely volunteer to step up. I think there's one Thursday, maybe the 5th or the 12th, I think it was, that I was just looking at my calendar that I might have a problem, but that's not even set in stone. So I'm happy to do it. I mean, like I said, I could probably get a couple neighbors just to come and sit with me and help me move stuff.
The other thing you could do, I don't know how Michelle and Meg feel about this, but when we were walking down there the last time that I went, my 5-year-old son was like, I mentioned that there was going to be an arts and crafts table, and he's like, oh, I hope it's just a bunch of supplies and we can do whatever we want. And so like a lot of the kids would probably just be cool having the supplies and using their own creativity to come up with the project. So if you really wanted to make it easy, you could just bring the supplies.
And I think, I mean, you could honestly just have supplies and a piece of butcher block paper, and people could take it back to their picnic table and draw on that at their picnic table when they're eating. We don't have to keep it we'll keep the supplies localized, but then they can take it back and do,
I'm
you know,
a little
whatever.
worried we would be losing supplies if we did that, is the only thing. I mean, because these kids get crazy. Like there's markers all over the place. It's insane. Like I told my husband that I was afraid to step into the group. I thought I might get hurt because they were just frenzied. So I'm just afraid that probably some of the supplies would not be ending up back with us if we did something like that. And
Okay.
you know what we did, like last week, the hand puppets were really popular. And most of the kids made hand puppets, which was our craft last week. And what happens typically, what I've observed is they will start out making the craft. And then once they're done with that, then it kind of evolves into them, you know, creating something else. And we've had examples of, I was putting up examples of previous weeks too. So like, you know, if they wanted to make a butterfly that we did the week before, then they could do that. And so, but yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like, it's like free range arts table. They just kind of do their own thing for the most part, but it does get crazy. I had like 20 kids at one time 2 weeks ago. And it was just like insanity. And I would have been totally in that melee when I was at, you know, that age. It was great. The kids are loving it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we're voting to continue it with Aaron and Kendra taking the lead. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, I will vote for that.
Do you want to make that motion?
Yeah, sure.
Can we put Aaron in there, Abby, or do we have to take her out since she's not in the meeting?
No, I think you can put her in there because she sent me an email right before and said she's got, she was thinking that they would use volunteers from her daughter's Girl Scout troop. So all the troop leaders are looking for like volunteers. Kendra could help out too. And then she even said she'd be willing to bring her tent down if we needed a cover, and she'd have her husband set it up. And then, so in terms of continuing, you'd be talking about 4 Thursdays in August, the 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th. And I can send her an email right now and let her know that the committee decided to let her take the lead along with Kendra helping to volunteer.
Okay. So just as a side note, the first week we did pipe cleaner rings. So that was a good learning experience for us because we found out that the kids just want to do whatever they want to, you know, they just want to be creative. So you literally, if you need supplies, could just go get a bunch of bags of pipe cleaners and they will have a ball. And they're like $1.80 a package or something.
How many kids would you say you got per week, Meg?
It probably, I think Michelle saying 20 kids at the table was probably, I don't think we had 20 kids at the table. Actually, when Kendra was volunteering with me, we were really busy that night, but we probably at most had like 12 kids,
Cool.
maybe 15.
Probably 6 on each side, about as full as you can make it. Because then kids won't really come over if there's not space for them. They'll kind of wait and go to chalk and then come back when there's a spot. And so,
But like
We've been
overall, I would
doing-
say like an entire night, maybe like 30, 40 kids at most. I don't know.
I definitely had more than that the last 2 weeks, and I've had 2 tables set up the last 2 weeks and they have been full. I think maybe as word has gotten out, more people are coming out. And last week we had a surprising number for as hot as it was. Like it was less, but there were still quite a few people.
It's going to be hot this Thursday too. Think of
Mhm.
Kendra and I.
we had the
We'll be
nice
sweating.
night.
You guys can bring us down some ice tea or something.
I will be working there for the music, so I will
Oh,
be
cool.
I'll be your runner if you need anything.
Okay. So we need to make a motion for a vote.
So Kendra made a motion, so we
Okay.
need a second.
I can second.
Okay, all in favor of continuing?
Say aye.
I feel bad voting yes when I'm not gonna be able to help, but yes, I.
Okay, opposed? Okay. Motion carries on the summer fun. So shall we move on to t-shirts? All right, Meg, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So I guess this is kind of random, the t-shirts coming up, but we went to start doing these things down in Stonehorse Green, and I wanted to like a way to say that I was a volunteer. So if kids needed help, they knew who they could turn to. Obviously these are not going to be done in time for that, but with the Good Neighbor Fest coming up, we probably should have some sort of a coordinated volunteer t-shirt for the arts committee and for future events. Like if we're going to be doing the art walk or whatever it's going to be called, we'll just keep reusing them. So I asked Abby if we could add that into the agenda and get pricing. And I think Scott got pricing for them. So I basically just took the art walk t-shirts and I replaced the art walk logo with just a generic arts committee logo. And then it just says volunteer. So it's very basic and it's only on the front because if you print on both sides, it gets really expensive. And I had to take out some colors because each color costs money. So it's as scaled down, I think, as it possibly can be without losing the branding of the city logo. I think I only got rid of the green. Pretty sure that was the only color I got rid of. So if we can afford it, I think this would be really nice to get these printed before the Good Neighbor Fest. And we should have enough time if we do it relatively quickly to get them printed for the volunteers.
And Meg, are you
Discussion on that?
thinking just for the committee member volunteers or to also have some extras on hand if we have somebody else sign up that's not on the committee?
I was just thinking the arts committee volunteers, just to keep things simple. One thing we could do for other volunteers is just tell them to wear a red t-shirt. And we could have name tags. I think my thought was going back to the art walk is I wish that we would have had the art walk t-shirts printed more generic. Except I guess me and Mike are the only ones who have those t-shirts and you, Abby. I just feel like long term we would use them, especially as we're getting more involved in other committees. We're doing things possibly with the library soon, and I'm sure we'll keep collaborating with the CDA. So I feel like they all come in handy. And then maybe that's something when we get new members, maybe this is like what they get when they become a new member. Welcome to the committee, you get a t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Now you get to volunteer a bunch of hours. So, and also it's great publicity having t-shirts because I wore my art walk t-shirt when I was mowing the lawn the other day and somebody stopped me and asked me about it. So, it works.
I have a question about the t-shirts. Do you get a discount if you buy multiple? Like if we get or is it only going to be per shirt?
There is a discount, but you have to order like quite a few. So I'm not sure.
If you're thinking of giving them to committee members, I mean, they're not going to turn them in when they're off the committee. So you'd have to have enough to, for a couple of years, I would, because it's a pretty generic logo. The logo looks great. So it could carry on for quite a while. So if you had enough that you could do this routinely, I don't know how many.
Like what sizes would you get though? Would you just get like 20 large, 20 medium, and 20 small? I don't know. That's too many, but 10
That's
small,
a good point.
10 medium, 10 large. I don't know.
So you're thinking this would be like a recurring buy?
Yeah, just for new committee members. Or we could just do it when we have an event that required t-shirts.
Yeah, for those that don't have them. And then we could get everybody's size and we wouldn't have a bunch.
Even if we just focus now on the Good Neighbor Fest, if we just focus small, immediate, do you think it's worth it for us to have volunteer t-shirts for the Good Neighbor Fest? So people know that we're with the arts committee.
Well, I think so, since we haven't done the Good Neighbor Fest before, I think it would be good for us to have volunteer shirts to kind of further our presence there, but I mean, we'll have signage as well.
And it indicates that there's an it's not just a one-off that we're doing at the Neighbor Fest. There's actually a committee that has programming, that has a plan, that has other things going on. So it's a good way to start conversation.
And make sure you wear it while you mow.
So I really like the idea of advertising that there is an arts committee. You know, a lot of people might not even know.
Yeah.
I didn't hear what you said, Katie. My internet cut out.
I'm sorry. I just, I said, I think it's a good idea to have t-shirts because a lot of folks might not even know there's an arts committee, and it might, and you know, it might make people ask about it, and maybe we'll get more volunteers for the committee in the future.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think I know it's true that people don't know there's an arts committee.
Mhm.
I think we're starting to have a little bit more visibility though. I was telling Emily last week about the images on the Middleton Center, and that the arts committee had worked with them, and yeah, they look great. They really look awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there are still a lot of people that don't know there's an arts committee. We've kind of been flying under the radar, I think.
So everyone's good with t-shirts? I haven't heard any nays,
Do we need to vote on this?
probably.
Yeah, just with like a number and whether you'd prefer to pay just a little bit extra per t-shirt to order from a local vendor, and the number of t-shirts is what we would need to know.
Meg, do you have a preference on the style of t-shirts? Was there one place, whether it's online or underground, were they better looking?
I've never used custom ink before, so that would be an experiment to see what their quality is like. But we used underground printing when we did the art walk t-shirts, and they're really nice. They're like a heather, which is why I wear it quite often. They're kind of soft, so it's kind of like a heathered red, you know, like not like a solid red. And I think the ink looked really nice. What did you think, Abby?
I think it looks really nice. And also it's held up pretty well because I've washed mine quite a few times, and it's like, you know, sometimes like the printing will like fade or crack, and I haven't had any problems like that.
Mm-hmm.
Did we scare all the guys off of our committee? Can we get women's style? And so we don't have to look like we're wearing the bowling team shirts?
We might be able to get different. I don't think the price increases. Maybe it does. I don't know, but it's probably pretty comparable if you want to order some women's cuts versus men's cuts. We still have Mike on the committee.
And I was going to ask about that because I remember at the last meeting, Michelle, you mentioned that Mike had reached out to you before the meeting, and I am getting bounce backs on all my email to him. So I'm not even sure if he's getting the agendas or anything. Does anybody have another contact information for him?
I might have an extra email for him.
So in my,
Over to-
sorry.
So I was just gonna say we have mutual friends, so I think I do have another email for him. I can send it to you.
In my experience with ordering t-shirts for my Pilates studio, they usually let you mix the men's and women's styles into one total.
Mm-hmm. I think what we should do, if everyone's okay with this, is send out, can I do it on Sign Up Genius? Send out some sort of form, maybe a Google form that just says like, what's your size preference and what fit you want. And then maybe we could have Scott reach out to them again and get a final cost. Although we'd have to do it pretty quickly because we need these ordered. So
What's
what do you
the
think it's gonna
turnaround time?
Well, we'll need them before Good Neighbor Fest, which is the last week of August.
But when do they need the artwork? What's the turnaround time for the printing?
It's probably a week or two. It's pretty typical.
I would add more time just because everything seems to be taking more time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you tell us we have to get this stuff to you by the end of the week, we can probably come up with our t-shirt size and get it to you.
So in
Can
order
you
to,
remind me again the date of Good Neighbor Fest?
So the last weekend of August, I think 27th through 29th. So are we going to then order a t-shirt for each committee member, assuming that everybody will volunteer at some point? Except for Molly, she can still have a t-shirt even if she doesn't want to volunteer, can't volunteer.
Heck yeah.
Oh, thank you.
She's in the club.
That's right.
Well, if you
think
wanted
that-
to get extras for, you could get 20 for $500 or less. That would be one for each committee member, and then we would have 10 extras to keep in stock.
Okay. But what sizes do we get? We're back to that again, and what cuts?
I would just go
Like
guess bigger.
a few of
and then-
each?
We
Like
can
small,
have Scott,
large and medium. and-
Scott can send you all an email and get your preference, and give you the measurements and everything from the website. And then for the rest, we could just, I don't know if I'd order any smalls, but that's just my opinion. I would just do like medium, large, and maybe extra large
Yeah.
and split it into thirds.
I will say that for the art walk, we had like just the normal non-slim fit. I'm not sure what that's called. And I had a small, and it's pretty tight on me. So just consider that when you're putting your size down. Like if I order again, I'll get a medium, so I have a little bit more room. So the women's fit's probably even smaller, I guess.
So shall we then look for a motion to order shirts for the committee members and then additional more generic shirts for other volunteers that will come along down the pike, I guess? So that how we want to do this?
I mean, is this an incentive for people to volunteer, like to get a t-shirt where you're like, the first 10 volunteers get a t-shirt? I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I think I don't know if it would be incentive, maybe just a bonus.
Or it might be nice to have having some on hand just for like the Girl Scouts, when they show up to the table, they can throw it on over their t-shirts. They're recognizable as a volunteer at that situation. Or at Good Neighbor Fest, if, again, a Girl Scout or, somebody else from the community is just volunteering for the time. They can, I don't know, have it like a penny where they just put it on for that moment.
I was going to suggest for when you mentioned the Girl Scouts, I think it's fun when you're at craft tables to have aprons that are, they don't take them with them. They just reuse them. So it could be fun to have arts committee aprons for kids. Even when sometimes we do craft activities that you get paint on and you don't want to get so maybe they can use them then too. And that could be fun too. I mean, I'm as an artist, I'm always wearing an apron. That's what distinguishes me as an artist, more than a t-shirt, right? So I was just going to suggest that, aprons.
Good idea.
I'd be okay with aprons over t-shirts too. I mean, in either one, I guess.
Oh, and what we love
get
about
messy.
aprons, they're the pockets. They're so useful.
Yeah.
So useful when you're doing craft stuff. I put so much stuff in my pocket. So yeah.
Should we have Scott get pricing for aprons? Do you think they do aprons there? I could look it up.
I bet they do. We can check really quick. I think they have a crazy good selection. Yeah, I like that idea with aprons too, because then they could be used by people who just show up to the table, and there's nothing that's gonna print in their mind, this is sponsored by the Arts Committee, like actually putting something on their body that says Arts Committee. The other thing I like about it is, parents are always taking pictures of their kids and like posting it online for the different activities that they do, and then they could get the Arts Committee information out that way too. So let me see.
That's a good idea. We could get kid size and adult size.
Can you see this? I don't remember if I shared my whole screen. Okay, yeah. So
Yes.
here are some apron options.
That's nice.
Can you click through for pricing or
Yes.
is that all depend on like design and all that stuff? Oh, you have to get a quick quote. Okay.
The ones I use at Penny, they have this adjustable little clasp right here that's really useful for the kids to be able to adjust with their height. So they're all one size, but even my little 1.5-year-old was able to put this huge apron because we were able to adjust the strap right here. And they just tie around and back and front. And the front was printed with the Penny logo on it.
Well, we can get some quotes for that later.
Mm-hmm.
You remember where you got them, Maria?
I didn't, they did, but I can ask them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that we can just approve later on if we decide, once we get the quotes, rather than having to vote on it? Can we just, can Meg or whoever's ordering have the authority to just do that so that we don't have to come back and vote?
I think that's fine. I would probably, at this meeting, I don't see why you couldn't just set an upper budgetary amount, that you want to spend on it. So that way she has some guidance and she's not like, oh, did they want to spend this much? I don't know. It might make it easier on Meg or whoever is doing the ordering. It might be us, Scott.
Just so I'm clear on what we're doing, are we just doing aprons now or are we doing t-shirts and aprons?
Well,
I
I
would
think we
say-
can do either.
Yeah, I would say both maybe. And then just have a
Or-
couple. I'm sitting here looking through my email trying to find a budget because I don't know what our budget's like.
Well,
Sorry.
Well,
So,
very
yeah, so we
small.
the committee gets 5,000 a year total in operating funds. And we've probably spent now with summer fun and the Good Neighbor Festival, I think we've budgeted of that 5,000, $1,500. So we would have 3,500 remaining.
is this
Well, you
something
wanna
that
set a budget-
in the email from Scott or I, whoever ends up doing it, that we could select whether we want a t-shirt or an apron? Other than the aprons would stay for other people to use, so maybe that's not as useful.
That's what I was thinking is that you have the committee t-shirts for committee members and then aprons for community use.
That's a good idea. I like that.
I like that too. So I'm gonna make a motion that we authorize Meg or Scott to order t-shirts for the Arts Committee and aprons, 6 or 10 aprons for future volunteers with the maximum budget of $500.
I think that should do it.
Okay, that's my motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we are down to updates for marketing and communications. So this, I guess, is where we will talk about Good Neighbor. So maybe we should start by talking about that. We have, as I was saying earlier, we've been working on doing a group art project. I did get in contact with Lindsay, and she gave me some pricing for doing just a background wash of a sunset with an outline of a festival on a canvas, with us providing the canvas of $400. If we were to want her to do finish work on it, then it would be $700. So she would so what she said is she would go in and kind of just clean it up and kind of tie everything together. Meg and I discussed this briefly. Meg says that she could do the final work. It does not include framing. It's just the drawing on the canvas and then the finish work if she were to do that. She did make some recommendations. She says that we do need to have volunteers available at all times to kind of monitor. She says you definitely need to monitor kids. Sometimes they'll draw obscenities, or people need guidance to kind of get them going, point them in the right direction. She said otherwise you will end up with a lot of hearts and smiley faces and stuff on the canvas. And we would also need an easel. I think that she has one that she can provide for us. So one of the questions that came up that Abby had presented was whether or not we would want to be with the other city groups next to their tent or next to their pop-up. And that's what we're planning on, is having a pop-up tent so that we can protect the canvas in case it rains. This would be for 12 and up, and then we would also have the crafts table outside, although that would not necessarily, we wouldn't necessarily have to do that. I just thought it might keep the younger kids entertained if the parents want to go in and work on the canvas. There is an actual arts and crafts area at the Good Neighbor Festival for kids as well, that someone else runs, that the festival. I can't remember who's running it this year. Good Neighbor Fest. So who wants to discuss that? Or do you have something to add, Meg? Did I cover kind of?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think we need to decide. Well, do you want to show them what she did for the chamber, just so people know what it's going to look like?
Abby, can you pull up the website?
I don't think I have the website.
What's it called again? Expressly.
Yeah, I don't know if I
Expressly yours.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can find it.
Expressly You Art, is that what it was?
Expressly. No. Hold on a second. Let me go back to my email. Expressively You.
Mm.
Is this it?
Yep. That's right. She's also a caricature artist, and she does caricatures at Grantwood, Good Neighbor. I'm not sure where the one is that
I think it's under events. She has a picture, like event art, and then collaborative painting.
Yeah. Okay.
And then if you scroll down, she's got a picture of the one that they did with the chamber. It's like a
right here.
Oops. I don't know if there's a way to load that.
That didn't work.
No, I was afraid of that. There we
There
go.
you go.
So what she's thinking of is a sunset watch. So this watch in the background with the blue sky, she would be doing some, and she did so she did that on this canvas in the gray and kind of the foreground snow. And then people kind of just went in and painted their own thing. And so she would be doing on ours a sunset and a festival scene. And I actually sent her a picture of the Good Neighbor Fest from a few years ago, the carnival. So she can, she can replicate that.
Will the canvas be about the same size?
The canvas, yeah, it's how big was it? 36 by 48 or
Oh no, we have priced out is 4 feet by 6 feet.
4 by 6.
So
Yeah, it's
much
big.
bigger than
Didn't you
this
buy
one.
a canvas too that we could use, that we could just paint over and use it still?
I don't know that we would be able
have
to. I don't know that we would be able to do that.
Okay.
With this project.
I priced them out at Michael's and a 4 by 6.
I think she's gonna want a clean canvas.
A 4 by 6 at Michael's is $100. I mean, it's not a great quality canvas, but I think for this it'll be fine. I was kind of picturing in my head something a little different, but it does seem like the people are having fun doing this, so that's good.
Well, and it will be different. This was acrylic paint. And so, I mean, it will be different. And the media will be different and the scene will be different. And there are a lot more people at Good Neighbor Fest than there are at the chamber dinner, chamber event. So, I think probably what we'll do is just Saturday. That's something else we need to discuss, but I think it makes sense just to do Saturday because on Sunday, the parade takes everyone's attention away. And so we wouldn't be starting until afternoon anyway. So, we're thinking 8 to 5 and wrapping it up before nightfall, before like people start coming in to see the bands at night and stuff.
Where's it gonna go when it's done?
We haven't determined that. I was kind of bending Jocelyn's ear the other day because I know she's got some wall space to display art at the
Jocelyn's
library.
the library director.
So, we haven't determined exactly where it's going. I mean, we're open to suggestion, but we were thinking of a public space, this, city-owned public space.
Oh, for sure. Having that information when people are working on it, so they know they can go see it when it's done.
Well, we'll have that figured out by then, I think. We just haven't nailed it down yet. Do you have suggestions for that, Abby? What about above the mayor's head in the chambers of the council? That would be visible.
I think more people would see it at the library because the meeting, I mean, not that many people are still attending in-person council meetings, and I don't know how visible it would be on the Zoom, and I don't know how many people watch the Zoom, but a lot of people go to the library.
It's true. And so maybe it could be traveling. Maybe it could go to the library, and then if they boot us out, it could go to the senior center. And
Yeah, I like that window at the senior center idea.
yeah, I like that too. That's a good idea. Maybe Tammy would let us put it there.
Yeah, I bet she would be willing to do that because it's not going to be like heavy or anything on that, that railing area, or I'm not sure what to call it. So yeah, I bet she would let us if that's the chosen location. I'm on a meeting with her tomorrow morning at 9 if you want me to ask her.
Yeah, we should definitely put our feelers out there and see who might want to display it after. And I know Jocelyn wants to work with us on another exhibit project, so we may be able to find a space for it at the library after all. I'll talk to her some more and see.
If we do, we should make sure we have some sort of a plaque or something on it that says it was with the arts committee. More publicity. doesn't have to be as permanent of a plaque as the other ones, but maybe it could just be something small in the corner. I don't know. We'll figure
Well,
it out.
and something to indicate the year too.
Mhm.
We talked about that, and I think what we're gonna do is when the finish, well, we talked about having her do the finish work and doing like a banner when she draws it out that has 2021, like a little flag on one of the buildings in the painting to indicate, so it's not like just written down in the corner. And then I think we should also include that it is a group art project.
Mhm.
Done at Good Neighbor Fest.
So what do we need to do for tonight? We just need to,
We need to approve Lindsay doing the canvas and decide whether or not we want her to do the finish work, or if you want to do the finish work, Meg. So the cost difference is $300. 400 if she just does the canvas outline and the wash, and 700 if she does the finishing.
I think
No,
because she's the artist, I think she should be the one finishing the work because it's her artwork, right? It's her image.
well, I mean, yes and no. Technically, it's our image because we're buying the image from her. She's, so I
But
mean,
her name is going to be on the plaque, right? It's her name attached to that work.
I guess I hadn't thought about how we were going to recognize her. I mean, we're not hiring, so normally what she does is she brings everything to the event, and she manages the painting and the entire project start to finish. Well, she can't do that because she's doing caricatures at Good Neighbor Fest. And so we're kind of on our own with that. So we're just really hiring her to do the outline or the outline and the finish work. So we can certainly put canvas, I don't know how we word it, but something about canvas created by Expressively You, or Lindsay's name or whatever on the plaque.
I'm fine with that too, because I'm not entirely sure what finishing work it's going to require. So that might be above
And
me.
she's okay with that. She's okay with somebody else finishing it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that makes any difference to her because she quoted it both ways.
Okay.
So, but if I do agree that maybe since she has experience doing this, maybe, and share her to do that, but we have to keep in mind we have $1,000 budget, so that will eat up most of our budget for Good Neighbor. And we do have to supply the canvas and the pens or whatever we decide to use. So that will be an additional, I don't know, couple $100. So if we do the $700 option, we're really going to be at more like 900 by the time we buy the supplies we need. So we would still be within budget.
So you need a motion?
I need a motion to either do just the outline or go all in.
I move that we go all in.
Okay.
I second.
Second by Maria. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. What else do we have for marketing communications, Meg?
We have the grant, the scholarship program, and the art walk, or whatever it's going to be called, but I think we could probably hold on those until next meeting.
I think so too. None of those are like an immediate need.
We need to figure out the art walk, or whatever it's going to be called, by I think like November, so that we can get in the travel guide, the Wisconsin Travel Arts and Crafts Guide.
So maybe we should put that as a separate agenda item for next time.
Okay. Just to note, I was at the Downtown Middleton Business Association meeting early last week, and they asked me if we were going to have another art walk. And I said, I wasn't sure, but we've started talking about it, and also that the committee is potentially looking at moving it to Lakeview Park instead of holding it downtown. And of course, amongst the downtown businesses, there was a lot of disappointment in that thinking, and they just expressed support for keeping it downtown. And I personally think we should keep it downtown too, but that's just
I
my
think
own.
we'll have to keep it downtown with the lack of volunteers. We're gonna need that.
Abby, is it too big to have it at Stonehorse?
Well, Stonehorse will probably be under construction at the time
Mhm.
that we have the art walk, if we're going with the May date. But we have talked about possibly closing that little segment of street long-term during the construction, so we could spread out into the street. I'm sure we'd still get a lot of support from the businesses for hosting artists. And I know at the last meeting, Erin Summers mentioned that as a participant, she supported consolidating the artists into a smaller area because she was located all the way at Capitol Brewery, and she said lots of people didn't make it down that far. But I think we could solve that issue in another way, which is if we do want to include Capitol Brewery, we can just find more businesses along the way, because there are other businesses that might be willing to host. I mean, there's an auto body shop that actually might be kind of cool for a metal artist or something. And then there's like a landscaping business and a couple other spots. And then we'll also have the new Middleton Center Phase 3 building will be open. And I think there's going to be a hair salon in that corner that might want to host an artist.
There's that nice outdoor place that the farmer's market is located at that could be a nice stretch for artists.
Yeah, that would be a good spot too. We
I
could even maybe have a food truck down there at Capitol Brewery or two, and that could be another draw.
I agree with consolidating too. I almost wonder if I don't want to like leave people out, but it might be better if we only had it on that side of Parmenter, because crossing the street on Parmenter, so the west side of Parmenter, so maybe it's like Aurora Street, or no, that's Hubbard, sorry. Hubbard and Terrace, like maybe it just loops around the corner and just does that little block, because we had to have like volunteers just help people cross the street. So it was a little bit more of a nightmare, but I don't want to leave like businesses out. So we definitely need to discuss this more in the future.
Yeah, I think the library would also be disappointed if they couldn't participate and they're on the east side of Parmenter Street. One idea is we could close Parmenter Street too.
Yeah.
Option.
Let us do that.
Just route the cars. We would need to keep High Point Road open so people could go around, and then they would need to be able to keep the cars open on Elmwood, I think, as an alternative route. But they closed Parmenter Street for the block party, and they used to do it for National Mustard Day, but they don't do it for that anymore.
Do you remember that beach one they used to have? I really wish they didn't stop.
Yeah.
That was so much fun with all the same.
That was organized by Marilyn Burke from the DMBA, and she was basically doing it all on her own. For some of the same reasons that you and Michelle have expressed frustration, she gave it up. It's really a heavy lift for one or two people to organize something like that.
Yeah, Dan stopped me. I think it was the first or second pop-up event. He was like, you know, you were talking to me about the art walk and how much work it is. It's like, yeah. He's like, I totally know what you're talking about now. It's like, yeah, I probably worked like at least 40 hours without getting paid for the art walk.
Oh.
So it's a very large time commitment. But it was very successful.
Yep.
So that's why I think we do need to keep it downtown, because if there's going to be a city staffer dedicated to downtown events, we're going to need that.
Yeah, it'll be a part-time position, and it's not approved yet, but there is a lot of support for getting that position in place, and I think the CDA will fund it.
One of the things that I remember Erin saying about Lakeview, though, is that it does offer an inside location where all the artists can be together. And I do think, although I appreciate that we're doing a lot of stuff downtown, I do think we need to start utilizing some of the other areas and spaces around town. So maybe we think of some secondary things, some other things
Well, we talked about doing the Madison Makers Market because they just had
that
one
we
in
can do.
Fitchburg. Oh, sorry, I think you cut out. But you know, the Madison Makers Markets are like popping up all over the place. They just did one in Fitchburg, so we could reach out to them and say, how about hosting one at Lakeview Park? I'm not
We
sure how much
could,
work that entails.
but I do just want us to remember that there are other places besides downtown that we could be utilizing and should be utilizing if we want to bring art into the other communities around the city. So that's just kind of my feeling on that.
I agree. I'm Molly.
So, well, do we want to put this on the agenda as a separate item for next meeting then, and then we can discuss it more extensively?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and then we kind of, I think, didn't we talk about putting the grant and we're doing the scholarship and then putting the grant program on hold? The scholarship would not be, I won't be getting any real information on that until February. That's when the school sends out the information. I would say that after reaching out to the school, they have a specific set of guidelines that we must follow. We can't just set our own guidelines. And so that is if we want to be included in the senior award night, which I think we do. I mean, otherwise it's kind of pointless. Like we want that exposure through the school. So I have the contact information, and Perry passed my information along to the person who organizes it before he retired. So we'll need to decide if we want to do it, but I won't have any real information until early next year. Anybody want to add anything?
Couldn't we as a group be able to come up with $1,000 from within ourselves?
For scholarships?
Yeah.
Well, we have enough in our budget to do that. And, you know, we're getting ready to talk about Percent for Arts program, and I am hoping that that's going to pass. I kind of put a bug in the mayor's ear the other day that, you know, that's what we really need is money and volunteers. And so, you know, a lot of things will hinge on that. But yeah, we have the money for scholarships. Any other discussion about that? No? Is that all then what we have for updates?
I think so. Yeah, right now. I think the art walk is the most pressing. And not the art walk, I'm sorry. Good Neighbor Fest. Most
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so we don't need to make a motion then because we already voted on the Good Neighbor Fest. So is that correct, Abby? Can go on to Percent for Arts.
Yes.
All right, so who would like to update Percent on Arts?
I have an update.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So, so for the newer members joining, the city has, well, the Arts Committee has been talking about establishing a Percent for Arts program, which would be tied to any TIF requests that are made for economic development projects in the city. And for anyone who's not familiar, TIF is tax increment financing. It is a tool that the city uses to help businesses expand and to attract new development in the city. It's used by every city in the state because the way that our state government works, it's the main tool that we have. In other cities, they have other methods like tax abatement, things like that. But in Wisconsin, we use TIF. And in Middleton, we provide TIF incentives that are negotiated for projects for things like poor soils, any environmental contamination or cleanup that's required on a site, workforce housing, sustainability features included in development, things like renewable energy, geothermal, etc. We do have public art called out, and we've had at least one project take us up on that, and that's the Middleton Station Apartments building that is on Terrace Avenue next to Capitol Brewery. They requested TIF assistance to establish a permanent piece of public art on their property, which the Arts Committee ended up selecting. It's the Quadrants sculpture, the steel, it kind of looks like a wind vane structure with a bench. So what the Arts Committee has been working on is trying to make a requirement that any project that receives TIF support from the city must have 1% of that TIF incentive tied to public art. And it could either be on that particular property if it's appropriate. So for example, one TIF project that's under construction right now is the Trotta Apartments. It's the building that looks like a big green building right now because they haven't added any siding yet. It's 4 stories on the old Colonial Motel site. That might be an appropriate location for art because it's highly visible and it's on the Parmenter corridor. So maybe that project would get assistance for an art piece on their property. If there's another project that's a little bit removed from a park or conservancy or public area, it's not visible to the public, maybe we would then take those funds that are generated from that project, set them aside for a piece of public art somewhere else within the TIF district. So there are pros and cons to using this TIF district approach. I think the reason that we've been thinking of using this method is because we thought that it would be more easily accepted by the city council and the mayor, but also by developers in the community, because it's not a requirement for every single project. It's just for projects. If you want assistance and you want something from the city, you need to help us meet our goals in terms of public art. So that's kind of the path we've been going down all along. Christina Koopman is here and she wrote the draft recommendation. We've run it by our TIF staff members, which is me with our city administrator, Mike Davis, and Bill Burns, our finance director. And we got some questions answered and some feedback from that group, which is incorporated now into the document. What we were waiting on at the last meeting was to get some more input from our city attorney. This actually came from our assistant city attorney, Matt Fleming, and his advice came in the form of 7 points, which I'm going to share with you all. The first one is basically, as it boils down, it basically says that public art is an acceptable use of TIF dollars. So that's pretty straightforward. He says, we've done it before, it can be used that way. The second point is that the TIF district project plan must include public art as a reference. And we have 2 TIF districts, one is TIF District 3 and one is TIF District 5. We have already included it in the approved project plan for TIF District 3. For TIF 5, we're amending that plan this year, and we have it in the amended draft. So by the end of this year, both project plans can meet that second bullet point. Number 3 is the one that has, I think, the most meat to it, and maybe the most consideration required by the Arts Committee. And I was actually pretty surprised by what he wrote here. And I might have to read some of it verbatim because it's kind of complicated. And I can also forward this all to you all afterwards. So you have time to digest it. But he basically was trying to make the point that he didn't see a value in talking about the public art installations in terms of the percentage of TIF money expended. And he basically said that in other communities, what he has seen is percent for arts programs that are either tied to a requirement for all developers or that are tied to a requirement on the municipality, which is the model that I've seen more frequently, where if a city says, and this is what the city of Madison has on the books, of our capital budget that we're spending on city projects like streets and parking ramps and buildings, we will set aside 1% of public art for our city projects. But basically what Matt Fleming was saying is that he's seen examples where it's tied to every single construction project in a city. So any commercial project, any new business building that's built, or any new multifamily building would have this requirement. He says he believes that the focus of the policy ought not be on the percentage of TIF assistance, but rather on the connection between the requirement to provide a space for and to maintain public art and the city's willingness to provide TIF funding. Whether or not money exists to put towards public art doesn't really depend on what a developer wants to give, but rather how much of the TIF increment the city wants to devote to public art. So what he's saying is, like, why would we just say a percentage of the TIF incentive, and why wouldn't the city just get to control what amount of the TIF incentive on a per project basis goes toward public art? He says this distinction is particularly acute when talking about making contributions to a non-lapsing public art fund, because that was one of the questions we had is, can the funds be set aside for this non-lapsing fund? And if so, do they have to be spent within a certain time period? We don't need a developer to give us TIF money to put into a public art fund. Instead, the question is, on what basis are we going to withhold a certain amount of TIF funding that we would give to a developer in order to fund public art? On the one hand, this feels like it might just be semantics, but just like our decision on whether to allocate 50% of increment or some other percentage, when it comes to amounts we want to put toward public art, it is the city's decision. It is not the developer's decision. The developer's choice is to take the assistance that the city is willing to give or to not take the assistance. So I think basically what he's saying is we shouldn't necessarily have like the set percentage, but instead it should be at the city's discretion to negotiate on each project. Or we have the other option, which is just to look at it being a requirement on all new buildings built in the city. And I'm actually surprised about that, because I would have definitely said that that is beyond the city's ability to make that a requirement. But it sounds like he is of the opinion that we could do that. And then the other points are much smaller. So he says, if we are going to go with the TIF route, the TIF funds must be spent within the TIF district. There is a rule that allows for certain TIF expenditures to be spent within a half a mile boundary of the TIF district. He thinks we shouldn't really get into that discussion, because then we have to begin to determine the relative benefit that the expenditure of public art outside the district would provide to the district itself, and it could get really messy. And I think we have enough properties within the district that that wouldn't really be an issue, because the TIF districts cover quite a large amount of the property in Middleton, including most of the Parmenter corridor, which I know has been a focus for public art. He talks about point number 5, we need to come up with language for developers agreements and probably deed restrictions, and this relates to future maintenance of art. He wondered if we had seen any examples of this. Point number 6 is he wonders whether there will be an expectation that some of the TIF incentive provided to a developer would compensate them for future maintenance of the work if it is their requirement to maintain the work. And then number 7, he's asking, are we doing nothing more than certifying that the art installation qualifies with our broad definition of public art? That seems like a pretty low standard. As the steward of TIF, it seems like there would be an expectation that what the city gives in TIF money for an art installation is at least commensurate with the hard cost of the materials, the reputation of the artist, and the prominence of the display. And he questioned, we had used the words visually accessible within the document, and he says that that can mean a lot of things. There could be a risk that the developer chooses something that is horrible and the city and the arts committee don't support. He wondered if it would be preferable to get space dedicated for public art and then have the city commission the work, which I think is kind of where we were leaning toward as well. Let's see. And then he talks about how the value of the installation will still be in the eye of the beholder, but at least we won't be betting it all on the developer's taste. So he also offered up that he has time to meet about this if the smaller group, Katie and Christina, want to jump on a Zoom with him at some point, he'd be willing to talk through some of this with us.
Abby, wouldn't we still, as the arts committee, have to approve the art? Because don't we have to approve any art that's placed?
That is how we have the policy written now, is even if it's something that the developer is selecting and choosing for their own property, that the arts committee would still have to approve.
And then, so we had discussed possibly using this for artist grants. Would we still be able to do that if they were in the TIF district, or would it strictly be for art and art maintenance?
If the artist grants were to fund works that would be placed within the TIF district, then that would be an eligible use.
And what if we've talked about maybe doing a residential grant? Would that qualify as well if the artist lived in the district?
No, I don't think so. I think that would be a stretch.
Okay, and so then the scholarships and the grants, or the scholarships would probably be bumped out of that as well.
They would have to be funded with the operating budget or another source. I don't think that they could be funded through the TIP district funds.
Okay.
They could potentially be funded from the roundabout sculpture.
Yes, yeah, and yeah, that was authorized, and Scott is sending those letters out this Wednesday. So hopefully we'll know more soon on that.
Back to his point about having every developer install public art. How does, I mean, in the past, I feel like we've said that that would be a deterrent to build here, right? If
I think that was a concern, yeah.
Okay, and then there's also certain areas where you physically couldn't put it, like the apartments across from the co-op. There's no place to even put a sculpture. Like how would you work around that?
It could be something that would be affixed to the side of the building.
Could the public art be like something inside, like let's say they wanted a mobile in the lobby, would that qualify? Or
then it would be
the window art?
Window could be, maybe.
Yeah, I would think if it's going to be considered public art, you shouldn't have to go inside to a locked building or live there to be able to see it. It should be visible from the exterior.
That was a lot of information to digest, so I think having an email would be good. But it seemed like a lot of good points that we haven't considered. Or maybe I haven't considered.
Does anybody else have questions?
I was just really excited to see this on the agenda. It's something that I have learned a little bit more about, even just before, right before the agenda came out. I was talking to somebody from California about having a very similar kind of program within their and it's the one that he's referring to where it's like any development has to set aside a certain amount, but they're in California. It's a highly desirable place to build businesses. Any type of structure going up has it, whether it be an apartment building, a supermarket, anything has that requirement. So I think it's great that this is happening. I was excited to see it on the agenda. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I'm excited.
Yes, funding has been our biggest struggle, and this would really take care of a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, and I think it gives a sign to anyone that's coming in to the community as a business that says, look, we invest in our community. Like, we are interested in making it an attractive place to be, where people are encouraged to get out and be part of the community and be part of the space that's around them. So I think it's a really good, I mean, as a business person, I don't think that it would be a deterrent. I would think that any business would, but that's just me and my like Pollyanna view of business world. But, I think it would be, I think going either direction would be interesting. I would love it if it wouldn't be considered a deterrent for every developer to have to do that. And not just TIF funding.
Can I sidetrack for a minute and have Kendra tell you about where she grew up and what they do?
Please do.
So I grew up in Mason City, Iowa, which is River City. So 76 trombones. And our hometown has a very strong sense of identity, right? If you have a Broadway musical that's based on your hometown, you listen to the songs ad nauseum, but they also have a lot of local art and art programming. Outside of visual art, there's music programming and theater programming and all that kind of stuff that's really built around that kind of identity. But one of the programs that they've been doing outside of that kind of brand, I guess you could say, is we have a sculpture walk that comes in every year. And it's actually, now that I've learned more about it, we can talk about it some other time, but it's basically funded by this kind of stuff through the TIF funding, and they have it come in and they commission artists from all over the Midwest and all over the world to do sculptures that they trade out. They actually have like 4 or 5 different cities, and it's all through loan. It's a whole bigger program, but they do the TIF funding thing. But they're also a small town Iowa, so you have to make it part of the TIF because otherwise people wouldn't develop there. But yeah,
I thought it sounded really cool.
Awesome.
Is that sculpture walk the same one they do in Grand Rapids?
there's some place in Wisconsin that does that, which I had just found. I didn't realize that they had done it here, but I learned that too over the past month. I think it's Grand Rapids. It's based out of North Dakota, I think. It's a nonprofit that runs it, and then North Dakota, this Bismarck, I think, or some town gets first dibs at this pool of basically bids from artists about what they want to do, and they pick out what they want, and then it goes as a round robin from the other cities, and they pick out a whole bunch of different sculptures, and then they get them for a year, and it's upwards of like 20, 25 sculptures. It's big. And at the end of the year, the whole city votes on which one they want to keep, and then the city buys that piece. But all of the sculptures that are available are for sale by the artists. And so if there's a local business that really likes one, they can purchase it and put it on their property, and it becomes owned by that business and it's on their property. Or private individuals can buy it and then donate it to the city, and then it becomes a piece of public art that way too. It's actually, the amount of sculpture that's brought into my hometown is just insane. I mean, it's kind of astounding actually. But it's a really cool program. But it takes, I mean, it's a substantial, it's not a huge, I have to crunch the numbers a little bit more because I can't remember off the top of my head, and I did not come prepared to talk about this. So no, that's okay. I just am like, but that would be some of those things that's where the funding could go very easily. And it's already a program that's already in place. We wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel kind of thing. It's already out there. Cities take advantage of this all the time, or at least this little consortium of cities does. So, but I'm really excited. I think this is a really smart idea. I think it's, I was just flipping through the screen to see if the people that were on the agenda that are working on this are here tonight, and I don't think that they are.
I think Christina was on.
Katie is here.
I'm on.
Katie is, not Christina though.
Okay. No, Christina.
Oh, Nelson. Okay. Sorry. This is me trying to read on my phone.
You got to take Conheim off of there. And also you can take Wood off of the marketing.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I'll need to update those. I just copy them from the last
Yeah.
agenda, so.
That's fine.
That's
I'm still learning, and I try to do all my homework, but I don't always do it well.
I know we're running out of time, but
Yeah.
I was just on vacation for a couple of weeks, and I don't know why, but now I notice artwork a lot more being on the arts committee, and I feel like we have a long way to go. Like a lot of other smaller communities have a lot more public artwork than we do, and they're like tiny, like half the size of Middleton. But one weird, really random thing is we ate at a restaurant and there was an arts committee meeting going on at the table next door to us.
Oh my gosh.
I know, isn't that really weird? There was only 3 people at it, but it was really cute. And the lady was really friendly. So we started chatting afterwards and asked her what she was working on. And she said they were with the Arts Commission, I think she called it. It was in, I'm going to say the wrong, Menominee, Michigan. It's like right on the border. So it's like you're in Wisconsin, you go across the river and you're in Menominee, Michigan. And she said that they focus too much on visual arts and not enough on performing arts. And so that was her word of advice to us, is that we should not forget the other arts, because I guess they got themselves into some trouble. So just something for the future to think about. I know Michelle's very into the performing arts, so I'm sure we'll be okay, but.
Well, that's one of the questions I was going to ask too about the TIFF is what if we wanted to bring in a Shakespeare troupe if a business wanted to do bring in a Shakespeare troupe, like let's say for summer fun every week or something, would that be something that they could use that TIF money for? Does it have to be visual? And then my other comment was going to be that people want to develop in Middleton. And so I don't know that that's going to deter the development here in any way if we make that a requirement for everyone. And then of course, I really like that mural project in Jackson, Michigan. And I was wondering if we could do something like that and bring in international artists to do something similar.
I mean, that's almost exactly like the thing Kendra's talking about, except
yeah, it is. It's almost identical. They bring in international artists, they commission them to do murals, they vote on them, the community votes on them, and then the winning one, it's not that it becomes a permanent artwork, but I think that the artist gets some additional recognition for it. I don't know exactly what it is. But I think there's a lot of things we could do. And my husband and I were in Beaver Dam and they have a lot of murals there. And I know we've been talking about wanting to do more murals as well. They had some really cool other public art too, like those flowers that were musical instruments. And I think there's a lot of ways we could go to incorporate music and performing art. But that would be my question, is if performing art would be something that could fall under that, if a developer wanted to have a live performance. I know that sounds weird,
Yeah, I think we can ask our attorney. I guess in my opinion, it's a little less clear cut because usually TIF builds like infrastructure. And so with it being like temporary, I don't know what he would think about that. I mean, we would be talking about a substantial amount of money here, like well over $100,000 potentially per year. And so I wonder if maybe those kinds of things could just get shifted to the operating budget, because we would be so much more freed up to do the larger scale stuff with the TIF. But we can ask Matt Fleming your question. I do want to just mention one thing though, when you stated the idea about the international artists, I love that idea. But I would just also note that this committee hasn't, due to lack of funding and other barriers that we've faced, we haven't really done a whole lot to support the artists that are right here in our own backyard. And Wisconsin is like number 50 in the country for public art spending on the arts. And so we have so many talented artists right here in Wisconsin, right? Even here in Dane County and Middleton. So just the idea of maybe working with some of those artists too.
Yeah, I actually think that's one of our goals as well. So we should probably focus on those.
I do feel like we should not just focus on Middleton, though. I do feel that we should be focused more statewide than, especially when we're doing like Art Walk, for example. I don't want us to limit it only to Middleton artists. I think we need to expand out past just Middleton artists. I'm not saying we shouldn't support Middleton artists by any means. We should, but I do think that we need to.
We did Dane County. So we expanded to Dane County, but it did get a little tricky with Lodi. Apparently Lodi is in a different county, even though it's so close to us. So we could maybe consider expanding it to more counties around. I don't know. I guess that's a conversation for another day.
You could go with like MADREP, the Madison Regional Economic Partnership is Dane County and the surrounding counties. So you could just go with, you know, a broader area like that if you wanted.
It's a good idea because then you get a lot of the artists from Spring Green and that side.
New Glarus has a lot of artists. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we've got deviated, I think, a little bit from Percent for Arts.
Sorry.
That's
This is
okay.
why I can't be the
I know, too.
chairperson.
We're all like kind of throwing all sorts of things at Abby. So we're just having a discussion on this. Does anybody else have anything that they want to ask or to talk about in regard to Percent of Arts program? All right. Well, since we're not voting then, should we move on to our budget request for 2022?
Sure. Yeah. So the budget request in previous years has been basically flat. I think you might have gotten a small increase a couple years ago. So this would be for the operating budget for the city. And that's been $5,000 annually with the Arts Committee's discretion on how the $5,000 gets spent. I would also note that if you wanted to apply for capital budget funding to do a larger piece of art, we could also put that into the capital budget as a request. I don't know if it would get funded, but you know, it's worth a shot. And we do have the new master plan addendum if there were any projects in there that you wanted to apply for funding for.
When do we need to make this request, Abby? What's the date we need to figure this out by?
The deadline is August 20th to submit them to the finance department.
Okay.
So we can ask for an increased operating budget?
You can ask, yeah. The operating is going to be a lot harder just because the operating budget is very constrained by the state levy cap, and we can't even fund one new staff position this year, and there's a whole bunch of pent up demand for city staff. So you can absolutely ask. I don't want to make any promises that the city council will approve it, but you can ask, and you can always request, you know, you can email your alderpersons and support the request. We do have one more Arts Committee meeting, Thursday, August 19th, which is the day before the budget requests are due.
Should we look at the projects that we have on the master plan, and then maybe just can we have everyone just kind of put their preference, send an email with their preference to you, Abby, and then we can figure out what project we might want to go forward with?
Are we talking about the capital budget or are we talking about the operating funds?
The capital budget, because the operating funds, I don't think, you said the operating funds, you don't think our chances are very great of getting a bump in that, right?
I think your chances would be better with the capital, and especially if you had a capital budget item that could potentially be covered by TIF district funding. So one idea is that you talked quite a bit about was the intersection of Parmenter and Hubbard, and we were talking about doing something that would align with the road project, but then there was also interest in doing like something that would be suspended above the roadway there that would bridge the corners, or possibly like 4 pieces on the corner. And after the committee was talking about that, we realized that that might not necessarily even have a tie-in with the road project if that's the route that you want to go, because I don't think the road project extents go beyond the curb. And so if you wanted to apply for funding next year to just install something there, or do like a competitive RFP, you could do that.
Yeah, and I like that idea. And we had previously, the old committee members and we had discussed a lighting project going over the street, correct? And we had looked at examples of lighting projects. lighting installations. So, I mean, I think that that would be a good project to fund, and if we could try to work that out of the capital budget, and it would be very visible. I mean, that sounded stupid. The location would be very visible. I mean, obviously a lighting installation is going to be visible.
Yeah, and what we would probably have to do is just kind of put a number out there. So I don't know, like 50 or 100,000 probably. It's not going to be an inexpensive project. And then we would have to do a competitive request for proposals, which is kind of nice, actually, in my opinion. I think one of the downfalls we've had is we've waited until we know what the piece of artwork looks like until we request the funding. That can be a problem because not everyone on the council is going to like it. That's just how artwork is. Not everyone likes it. And then you run the risk of, 4 members voting against it because they don't like that exact piece that was selected.
So should we request then, should we go midway and request 75,000? Will our chances be better of getting it if we request 50?
Chances would be better if you requested 50, yes.
They have to just, how much do you have to provide when you submit the request? You can just give I'm just wondering how much. I'm talk to me like I'm stupid because I'm coming in from ground zero here, but like, I can't imagine that we can just be like, here, give it $50,000. We have an idea to do an art installation, but we don't really know what it's going to look like or where it's going to go yet. Like how much, I'm just thinking for August 20th, I'm just wondering. And does it hurt us if we just go in and ask for next year? I guess year after year, it doesn't matter, right? We can ask again next year and they're not going to be like, well, you guys didn't, I don't know, just how put together do we have to seem with our ask?
Yeah, well, Katie Nelson is on the city council and will be involved with reviewing the budget request. We also have the benefit of having a couple of other council members right now that have served on the arts committee previously and are generally supportive of public art, including Emily Kuhn. I think I cannot remember, I was just trying to pull up the public art master plan addendum.
I was trying to too.
Yeah, so I was wondering if it specified, I can't remember if it specified that project exactly, but if you have a tie-in to a plan that's been approved, that would help.
We have pricing for like the utility box wraps. We have pricing for like the haiku project. We have like so many things that we've already like kind of started. I almost wonder if it would make more sense to tackle some of those.
Good idea.
Where we've already scouted out the locations of the utility wrap things. Madison's already done it, so we know it looks great.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I still have issues with the lighting stuff over the sidewalk, but that's just me personally. So I don't know.
Because
It might need more conversation. I don't know why we're defining that intersection as like the focal point. Plus we're having Stonehorse Green coming in, so that's going to have a piece of artwork. So there's already going to be a piece of artwork down there. Might be kind of nice to spread it out. I don't know.
I really like your idea of doing the 1 or 2, 3 of the smaller ones. I think the wrapping is a great idea. That would be really cool to get that done.
We've had that on the list for so many years. Well, since
It looks so
started.
Cool.
Yeah, it's right there. Artist streetscaping.
And what was it that somebody was talking about with the pictures, the historical pictures that just went up, and there was something that was tying in with that? Could we bid that out? I don't know what that is, but I know it. I think I saw it in here somewhere.
We got pricing for stencils, but we still need to get like pricing for who would paint them on, I guess. I don't know if it would be one of us or if it would be like a street crew.
That would be.
And we'd have to also work with the Historical Society to figure out what they would say. So
But that's kind of I mean, that would be something that we could bid in because that ties into something that's already there. So that would be easy, that might be something like, hey, this is an extension of something that's already started and where it could go.
That I would recommend on the sidewalk notes, just because of the low cost associated with it. I would recommend doing that as an operating budget item. I don't know if it would meet the criteria for capital budget, which is non-reoccurring, and I think it needs to be 5,000 or more. I think if you put all the utility box wraps together into one request, that would probably meet the capital budget, because it would be the other thing is longevity. I think it needs to be in place for 5 years or more. And the final on the utility box is 7 years. So I think the utility box would be okay.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think so too.
I like that it involves more community members, so we could do like a call for artists and we'll get paid.
And it goes across the whole city. It's going to be, again, I don't know all the details, but I'm assuming it covers quite a bit of land. So people are going to see them within their own neighborhoods, not just in downtown.
Did we have a quote already for the cost of the utility box wrap? I can't remember.
We had, I know we have information from Karen Wolf in Madison for what they paid, and their preferred vendor is not in business anymore. So we probably would need to reach out to a couple of different vendors and get updated quotes, but it's relatively low cost. I'm thinking it's probably between 750 to 1,000 per utility box.
Do we know how many we have? So how many do we have it? Did you hear me? I'm sorry, I cut out again. I'm on a hotspot and I keep cutting out.
Yeah, so we don't have a number for the exact number, like throughout the whole city, and which ones would actually be okay to wrap. That we don't have, but we do have a survey of them from major street corridors, and that was put together quite a while ago, but I don't think there's been very many changes to it. And it includes like the measurements and everything. Let me see if I can pull it up. Here it is. Let's see. We even sent a memo apparently at one point to the Public Works Committee, and that was back in 2012. So like almost 10 years ago. Okay, so here's the inventory that was done. And so I know some of these we would need to get approval for.
Well, some of those really need to be wrapped. They're pretty big eyesores.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that the intern who put this together for me was really trying to focus mostly on the Parmenter corridor, but he's included some other ones in other areas. This one would be really cool. It's Branch and Century by the PDQ. It's in the historic Pheasant Branch area that a lot of people don't even really know is a historic area of the city.
Mm-hmm.
And so like maybe there's a historical theme there to that one. I walked the University Avenue corridor with some people who are helping us develop a plan for that corridor last week, and somebody suggested that we wrap the utility boxes with art because they look really bad in front of the new Kestrel building. There are like a whole cluster of them right in the front of the building, and somebody was like, you need to do some art there, and I'm like, oh, we're working on it.
For 10 years.
That'll work out. Well, I mean, there's like 12 of them at least on here. How, is this the end of it?
Yeah, there's quite a few. Yeah.
And they're $2,000 each, so we're looking at $24,000 at least.
Yeah,
Oh,
and we could, I think several of these would be TIF eligible just because of the area that they're in. If you want to go that route where you request X in TIF and X in capital, maybe the tourism commission would end up sponsoring the ones that aren't eligible for TIF funding. That's another idea.
But what if we don't get the TIF funding? Should we ask for the money for this project from the capital budget and then work on other projects with that? That's the only concern I would have, is that we wouldn't get the TIF and then we would have committed to using part of TIF and not have enough from the capital budget. You know, if we were gonna say we were using both.
Well, I was thinking more that the council is more likely to approve it if it's a TIF request, but if you wanted to put it in as general capital, they may come up with that idea themselves, like, oh, well, why can't this be funded through the TIF district? So that's an idea too.
Okay. All right, so we have time to discuss this and think about this before the next meeting. I mean, we have time to think about this before the next meeting and discuss it at the next meeting.
Kind of. No.
So if we're meeting next on the 19th, but bids are due the 20th, how much do we have to do to put the request in? Like, how much paperwork is it? What kind of, or is it just like, this is what we have? And I mean, obviously all the information's here. So there's not like we have to go out and create a bunch of,
Well,
but is there
we need
anything?
quotes for sure.
Oh, okay.
We'd have to know how much we are looking at, I think, have a rough idea.
Yeah, so let me just give you an example of what the form looks like for the capital budget.
I know we're way over time. I can have this conversation, or I can look it up.
So
look
it's
at it another
pretty minimal.
Okay.
It's more like, you know, when I go to present our department's requests, they'll have a lot of questions inevitably, but the actual form itself is pretty minimal.
Okay.
They also don't allow attachments, so it's kind of hard to convey what we're talking about because they don't allow like a JPEG or an image or anything. Just want this spreadsheet and that's it.
Just want the numbers.
Yeah,
But I feel
and
like
so
they've all
then
been to Madison, they've all seen the utility box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And other cities too, like a lot of cities have these now, so.
yeah. So they ask for like a brief description, the useful life of the item, and then they ask for justification. And it's best if the justification ties back to a approved plan. And in this case, it does. It's in the recently approved master plan addendum. And then they want to know the project costs and then the funding source that it's being requested from. And that's basically it.
That's where, okay, so that's where it is. Capital.
So can we get a bid on, figure out, we have what, 12 of them you said, Meg? Is that how many?
On that document, there were 12 of them, and I
So,
think he said they
can
might be like $2,000 each, or maybe more now. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm sure they're more expensive because everything has gone up in price since then.
$3,000 each.
Should we, well, we probably should try to
Get a quote.
find somebody that can do it. So is this something that can be done, Abby, by like any place,
No.
It's going to be
places that do car wraps and stuff like that? Like,
those are going to be the best places. I don't even think we should get a formal quote at this point. I think we should reach out to a couple of these companies, make sure that they could do it, explain what we learned from Karin, and find out like how much more they're just thinking it would be, because they're probably only going to make their quote good for a period of 6 months, and they're going to want to know like specifics on the size, and it's way more detailed than what we need. I think what I would recommend is we just get the basic information from them. We put together a budget request, and then if it turns out we say that the request is for 12, we're only getting 10, that's not going to be the end of the world. I don't think for any of our elected officials. I think they would totally understand that this isn't based on like a formal quote. This is based on, you know, previous costs and then maybe adding some inflation.
well, and it looks to me like those are various sizes, the utility boxes. And so are some of, it'll have to be like, we'll have to look at it like an average.
Yep.
Yep.
And the other part that we're not going to know all the details of until we actually get the funding and we're ready to start the project is getting the approvals needed from the utilities themselves. So we are probably going to end up thinking we have these 12 in mind, and it might be that only 6 of those are installed and we do 6 in another part of the city. We're going to have to wait until we're ready to like work on the details because it's going to take some time to work all that out.
Okay.
Now, and again, I'm trying to be sensitive of time, but is there already been a design decided on, or is it going to be a call for artists kind of
Yeah.
thing too? So that'll be nice to be able to put that, like, I think that's important that we highlight that, and that, and we should build in at least some commission for the artist that's going to be doing that work.
Yes, yeah. They did that in Madison. That was a really important part of their project, is to make sure that the artists were being compensated. I can't remember what they provided, but we should probably add some inflation to that too. I feel like it was like $750 per artist, but I cannot remember.
So let's say 1,000 per artist, and then we want to average 3 per box. So $4,000 a piece approximately. Is that what we're looking at?
I better pull up the thing because I can't remember what she told us. Okay, so this is from 2018. She said that it was important to pay a living wage to the artist. It's less costly to purchase rights to an image that they've already created, which is what they did in Madison. So Ad Creations did one for $750. They won't do that again because it's way too time consuming to do as a pilot. Let's see here.
That's a percentage. They did theirs through the capital budget. That's what I was just saying. It looked like.
I missed that, but that's good to know.
I think it was I think scrolling down. I'm trying to like scroll on my computer and it's not.
Sorry.
Yeah, they passed a percentage for our program tied to capital projects.
They got CDBG too.
I think that this might have been when we started.
Oh, tourism.
Yeah, we started talking about like just more broadly what the city of Madison was doing. Oh yeah, they were gonna have a songwriter in residence at the fire station on Willie Street. I thought that was so cool.
Cute.
Yeah. So I guess she didn't, I don't think I wrote down what their commission was for the artist. But I know Maria participated in the Doors project that Madison worked on, and I wonder if she would remember what the commission was.
I think it was $500 or $600.
So it might be something kind of similar to that range. Well, we can put together a draft and then you all will have something to react to in the packet at the next meeting, if that works.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yep.
Anything
Was
else?
our last agenda item?
Sorry, I'm trying to find where I can share the agenda again to see. I've got too many tabs open.
I think that was it.
Was that the last item?
I think so.
Yes, it was 2022 budget request.
Was that all we needed to talk about then, was our operating and capital budget from the city? All right. All right, anything anybody wants to discuss at this point? No? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
So Meg and Katie, All right. Thanks, everybody. Good discussion.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned at 8:55 p.m. I'm just gonna start saying that because Scott is gonna help write the minutes for the meetings, so he'll know when the meeting ended.
That was one of our longer ones.
I think it was.
It
My
was.
goodness.
All right.
Thank you
well,
for bringing me up to
guys.
speed, though.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.